Good morning, Baltimore.
Good morning.
Welcome to the opening session of the 31st Annual Huntington's Disease Society of America's Convention. I am so glad that you're here. How many folks were at the reception last night? Show of hands. It was a fun time. I'm so glad that you were able to come in a little bit early to celebrate with us. And today, the learning begins. We have some amazing speakers lined up today and tomorrow through our program. In all of your bags, when you registered, you received this beautiful, but perhaps a little bit heavy, program of all the activities planned today and tomorrow. So, as you came in and found your seat in this room this morning, you found a flyer that helps you download an app to your phone or your tablet that has all of the content and more of the program through Guidebook. So I'd encourage you, take a minute during the break today at around 10:15 to download the app. You'll have lots of information on all of the speakers throughout convention, as well as different ways to provide your feedback on this convention. The surveys that we collect at convention and after to capture your experience at this convention help us shape next year's convention in Illinois. So really, we want to hear from you. Let us know what we're doing right. Let us know what you want to see more of. So we have two fabulous speakers this morning, and it's my pleasure to introduce you to the chairman of HDSA's Board of Trustees, Dr. Jung Ho Cha, to get today's started. Jung Ho.
Good morning. Good morning. And welcome to Baltimore and the 31st Annual HDSA Convention. I'm Jung Ho Cha, Chairman of the HDSA Board of Trustees, and it is my immense pleasure to welcome you to this opening ceremony. I hope you were able to join us last evening for our kickoff welcome reception, which was tons of fun with boardwalk-style games, a crab, and great food. All right, the next 2 days are action-packed, and while everything is in your program book, I did want to just touch on a few highlights. First, I want to thank Lundbeck for sponsoring both a national and local scholarship program that has brought 98 family members to Baltimore today. And I want to recognize the National Youth Alliance and their fundraising efforts, which has allowed 34 youth and young adults to attend the convention as well. Let's have a round of applause, please. And while I'm recognizing the NYA and their scholarship program, let me remind you that they are holding their annual silent auction in the exhibit hall today until 6 p.m. Be sure to stop by and bid on one of their many items. And this evening, join them for their talent show beginning at 7 p.m. I guarantee you'll have a good time. All the proceeds from these events go to support NYA scholarships to the HDSA convention. I'd also like to take a moment to thank our sponsors, which make this convention and all of the activities that go with it possible. Please hold your applause until the end. We have a long list. Our thanks to our premier sponsor, Teva Neuroscience, our platinum sponsors, Lundbeck and MetLife Center for Special Needs Planning, our gold sponsors, Enroll HD, our bronze sponsors, Kindred Healthcare, Broda, Ionis Pharmaceuticals, Novacor Healthcare, and Vaccinex, as well as our patrons, Sanofi Genzyme, and Wave Life Sciences. Now let's let them know how much we appreciate their support. And as Louise mentioned, we are also pleased and excited to announce a new way to access the convention program. This year we have a digital copy available through Guidebook, right? So you can check in real time any changes that might be taking place with meeting rooms, special activities, or exciting news developments. Instructions for downloading Guidebook are on your seat, and the app is free. Just go to the web address and tap the download button to obtain the Guidebook app. It's that easy. But we know that not everyone has a smartphone, so this year we've also had printed programs placed in your convention bag. But be sure to let us know how you like the new digital program. I think it's pretty slick. Okay. We are also offering 4 activity sessions for persons with HD this year in the Charles Room on the 3rd floor. 2 will be held today at 11 a.m. and 1:45 p.m., and tomorrow at 1:15 p.m. and 2:30 p.m. Please consult the program book for the activity that's being offered. HDSA is also offering an advocacy meet and greet action hour later today from 5 to 6, where you can meet representatives from the area to talk with them about the Huntington's Disease Parity Act. And if you are not from the area, but you want to send a video message of support for this piece of legislation, you can do so. Our video team will be in the Chesapeake A and B rooms to tape your messages. To learn more about HDSA legislative efforts, be sure to attend the advocacy workshop today at 3:30 p.m. and stop by the advocacy table in the exhibit hall. On Saturday, we have a really special research forum scheduled with a keynote by Dr. Walter Koroshetz, Director of the National Institute for Neurologic Disorders and Stroke, and an address by Dr. Robert Pacifici, Chief Scientific Officer at CHDI Foundation. During the break tomorrow, be sure to stop by the poster session in the exhibit hall that is being hosted by our Don King Research Fellows. Clinical trials are a vital part of the process to find effective therapies for HD. The HD gene was found because families heeded the cries of HD researchers for their help. It will only be by your continued involvement in clinical studies that the answers will be found. So at noon, HDSA will be hosting a clinical trials showcase that will provide an overview of current clinical trials. A boxed lunch is being served. Included in the showcase will be important information about HDSA's new HD Trial Finder, an easy-to-use online matching service that connects individuals with clinical trials in their area. So please help us so we can help the HD community. Also on Saturday, you'll have the opportunity to meet your National Board of Trustees. So please join us at 1:15 in the President Room on the 1st floor. But let me take a moment to ask our board members to stand. People, I know you're here. Thank you for all that you do. I'm going to take my prerogative as chairman to turn towards the personal. Many of you will know that I suffered a stroke in January of this year and nearly died. Fortunately, I was able to receive medical treatment promptly and was administered TPA, the clot-busting drug, within the 3-hour window. And the next day, a life-threatening clot was removed from my carotid artery. The good news is that I was lucky to receive prompt medical attention and to go to an inpatient rehabilitation hospital where they worked me very hard. I would just like to thank this community for the tremendous amount of support, all of the good wishes, and the many, many prayers. The good news is that I'm fully recovered and back to full-time work. I feel like I've learned a lot from HD patients and their families that served me really well. If there's ever a group of people who know what it is to find yourself in a situation that you did not choose, a situation that is dangerous and frightening, it is the HD community. If there's ever a group of people who make the best of the cards that they have been dealt, it is the HD community. To have so many of you offering me your support and prayers was and is simply overwhelming. As a way to honor HD patients and families, I will be proud to run the New York City Marathon this fall. There are others who will be running alongside me. In reality, they'll be way ahead of me, but alongside me in spirit. Can I ask those people who are running the marathon this year or who have ever run a marathon for HGSA to stand up? I know you're in the house, people. And you can bet all those board trustees who are standing up earlier that I'm going to ask them to support my fundraising efforts for HGSA. Okay. Now let me introduce our speaker. Peter Rosenberger is the caregiver's caregiver. For the past 30 years, radio host, author, speaker, accomplished pianist, and black belt in Hapkido, Peter has personally traveled the path of the family caregiver. In the process, he has learned that a caregiver can not only survive, but thrive in the midst of oftentimes grim circumstances. In an unparalleled journey with his wife, Gracie, he has navigated a medical nightmare that has mushroomed to 78 operations, the amputation of both of Gracie's legs, treatment by more than 60 doctors in 12 hospitals, 7 medical insurance companies, and $9 million in medical bills. Today, we're fortunate to welcome Peter as he shares caregiver strategies and the tools caregivers need not only to feel better, but also to feel empowered. Join me in welcoming our speaker, Peter Rosenberger.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you. Good morning. I don't stand behind a podium. I'm a caregiver. I move quickly. What is a caregiver? You know, somebody asked me, said, what does it feel like to be a caregiver? And I said, well, it's like getting to a road and you look both ways and then get hit by a plane. That's a caregiver. And some of you, I'm going to start off, look, I'm not like what other speakers are. I just want to set that, and this is the way I talk. How many of you from the South? Okay, you're okay. How many of you from not from the South? All right, there may be subtitles up here. Okay? So if you don't understand, I'll give you a couple things. We were talking, my friend Daniel Clausen here, who's from Nashville as well. I'm from Nashville, Tennessee. I work in the rhinestone mines. And y'all got to keep up. Daniel is not only a neurologist, but he's also a world-class violist. And in Nashville, that makes sense when your neurologist is a fiddle player. And get him to play Turkey in the Straw for you. We say things in the South, and I just want to give you all a heads up because they may come out in this conversation today. Like, you know, of course, you know y'all. And then the plural is all y'all. And then if you're with my mother and those group of people, it's mom or nim. And then you always button up a conversation with bless your heart. I mean, you can say anything in the South and follow it with bless your, he kills puppies, bless his heart. You know, you could say that in the South. That's what we do. All right, so those are the ground rules. And a couple years ago, I did a video with AARP of You Might Be a Caregiver If with a friend of mine, Jeff Foxworthy. I think a lot of you all know who he is. And I was doing an interview prior to that, and I lapsed into a couple of You Might Be a Caregiver things, and they thought it was kind of funny. And they said, you ought to do this with Jeff. And so I called him up and I asked him, I said, you want to do this with me? And he said, well, write out a few jokes and we'll do it. I said, these aren't jokes. This is my life. And so we put these together. These are all true. And I thought I'd start off. Now, I don't do a very good Jeff impression. I'll try. But we did this, and you can Google it, but I'll see if this resonates with you. If you have a professional carpet cleaner on retainer, you're probably a caregiver. If you could open up a door with your butt to get the wheelchair through, chances are you're a caregiver. If a hospital bed has never hampered your love life, we've been in the hospital a lot, and there's no use wasting a semi-private room. If you can cook a turkey with dressing while changing a dressing, you're probably a caregiver. Now this is true, I've actually done this. If you've ever told a nurse that you're a doctor specializing in cranial proctology just to get into the ICU, now do you know what a cranial proctologist is? Because that's what I am. I help get people's heads out of, well, if you've ever used Neosporin as a verb, hold still, baby, I got a Neosporin this so I can get to church on time. That's my life as a caregiver. And they keep growing. Just last month, I had another one. If you've ever been on speakerphone with the wheelchair manufacturer while making a meatloaf, this is my life, and this is your life too. I asked the guys on the camera, by the way, you'll notice they don't put it here because it messes up, because I don't stay stationary. And I move around a lot, and I'm always kinetic with it. I think most of you caregivers get that, right? I was called upon they were vetting me to speak to the Senate Council on Aging a while back, and I went through several committees. They wanted to talk about caregivers who use technology. Well, the biggest piece of technology I use is Bluetooth, because I'm always hands-free. If you're talking to me and I'm having to hold my phone, it'll be a short conversation because I'm cooking, doing dishes, or whatever that I do. But I really wanted to go to the Council on Aging and speak, but they wanted somebody taking care of a parent. And I was like, well, crap, because I really wanted to go. Can I say crap, Louise? Oh, sorry. And I wanted to go because I went through like 3 committees. They vetted me through 3 committees. Did they call you, Daniel, and ask for a reference? Okay. Whew, dodge that bullet. And I wanted to sit there at that table and have my little name card there with the picture and the microphone. And I was going to look at the Senate Council on Aging, and I was going to say, before we begin, I just want to say I did not send an email to that woman. Not a single one. It would have been the last time I spoke before the Council on Aging. So this early in the morning, I kind of lapse into that. I work in Africa periodically. I go over there with an organization my wife and I started called Standing with Hope, which is all the honorariums I get when I speak and so forth all goes to this nonprofit that puts legs on amputees. We do this in West Africa. We've been doing this for now over a decade, and we teach and equip local workers how to make limbs for their own people. And I was over there, and there was a state funeral for the president of Ghana, and this is when Hillary Clinton was still the Secretary of State. And I was in line at the airport, and I heard some people in front of me, and they were talking. I could tell they were Americans by the way they're talking, so I introduced myself. Turns out they were her advance team. And I said, well, listen, you need to tell Baby Doll she needs to start staying home on Friday nights and cooking me a taco. I'm tired of TV dinners. And they said, oh, we got to get your card. We got to tell her about you. But I never heard from her, so I don't know if that got deleted or not. But anyway, so if I lapse into that, y'all just be family. Listen, I was talking to Louise about 2 weeks ago, and I'm very honored to be a part of this today and to hang out with you and share a few things I've learned along the way as a caregiver. I've been a caregiver long enough and through enough brutal realities to respect and have a deep appreciation for what you all go through. And I just wanted you to know how meaningful it is. My great-grandfather had HD. His daughter did. My grandfather did not. But he lived in a great deal of fear about it for a very long, long time. And then he died at a young age unrelated to it. And then my dad lived with a great deal of fear because there was that uncertainty about it with his dad dying. It did skip my family, but not his aunt and his cousins. And what you guys deal with as caregivers, and those of you who are not caregivers, you're going to get something out of what I'm talking about today. But those of you who are caregivers, this is who I talk to. And I'm all about strengthening the family caregiver. There are 65 plus million of us as caregivers across the country, taking care of folks from all types of circumstances, whether it's aging, special needs children, disease, in my case, trauma. There's so many of us, and the numbers are going to grow. Well, what happens to the patient when the caregiver goes down? What happens to my wife if I go down, if I'm not in a healthy place emotionally, physically, fiscally? What happens? This is what I'm on a mission to do, and I really appreciate the opportunity to come and just hang out with you guys. And Louise has just been so gracious with that. Dr. Chop, I really do appreciate it. So let's get to it. Right now, let me get and they made me promise not to leave the stage, because I usually walk out. I go all Phil Donahue on you. I got the hair for it. If you don't know who Phil Donahue is, Google it. I find my references get dated very quick here. Actually, I'm not that old. I'm only 30. This is what caregiving does to you. Don't let this happen to somebody you love. I'm Nigerian. Look what it did to me. All right, so let me get a pace of the room here. For all you caregivers, just shout out, how do you feel? Tired. Tired. Do I hear another tired? Anything else? How do you feel? Frustrated. Lonely. Stressed. Hopeful. Angry. Inadequate. Confused. Isolated. This is how we feel. Now, who all feels this just one feeling at a time? It comes at us in waves. And it's very unmerciful. Anybody had a late night conversation with the ceiling fan? I have those a lot. You're okay, by the way, if you're doing that. The problem is if the ceiling fan talks back, then we have a different set of problems. This is a true story. I wanted to go to share this, but I figured, what the heck? Y'all are family. Bless your heart. Once I got so stressed, I had a surgery. I had an emergency appendectomy, and it went wrong, and the doctor, I had a long conversation with the doctor afterwards and told him that my dad was a minister, be glad to marry his parents. But I was pretty sick there for a while. This is some years ago, and I wasn't getting any rest, and I think it dawned on my family when they came up to help a little bit with my wife just what it is I was carrying. And I got so stressed at one point, I wasn't sleeping, and I tried to check myself into a local mental health hospital just to get a break. And I went there, and I walked up there and said, do you guys take walk-ins? And they said, well, they kind of looked at me kind of strange to see if I was, who is this guy? And that's kind of surprising because it's a mental health hospital. They ought to be able to at least vet you with their eyes first off. But and so they took my wallet, my keys, and my blood pressure, and they sit there and they talked to me for a long time. And I just kind of dumped it all out. And they said, well, you're not crazy. And I said, can I get that in writing? Because there's some folks that really want to see that. They said, you're burnt out. You're stressed out. We have some boxed lunches. We got one left. It's tuna fish. You want it? And I said, yes, I do. So I thought I'd get a t-shirt that says, I tried to have myself committed and all I got was the tuna sandwich. We're burned out. But then the counselor said, I'd recommend a book for you to read, but you're the guy to write it. So I wrote my own book. And I titled it Hope for the Caregiver. Now, hope for the caregiver is not hearts and rainbows and unicorns and lucky stars and clovers. Hope for the caregiver is the conviction that we as caregivers, you and me, we can live a calmer, healthier, and dare I say it, an even more joyful life, even while dealing with grim realities. Now, anybody else tells you that, you can take it with a grain of salt. This is not my opinion. My opinion is Bupkis. My last name is Rosenberger. I could use Yiddish words. My opinion is irrelevant. I don't even care about my opinion. My experience, on the other hand, is highly relevant. And I've learned this, and I've learned that I can do this. So I want to jump into this real quick. Anybody ever snowmobile? Clearly, you're really into it. I told you not to do that during the middle of this show. I like to go out on snowmobiles. I've been doing this for some time out in Montana. And my wife's family has a place that's backed up to the National Forest. We're way up. We're 10 miles from the paved road. And it's a wilderness area. And these are not nicely groomed trails. They're somewhat groomed. Well, they're not really groomed. They're just trails. And they have little reflector markers on there. And I've been doing this for years. But one day, it was a very windy day. and it was all a bunch of new snow. And my youngest son and I were out there, and somehow we missed the marker. And we ended up on the side of a slope out in the middle of, I didn't even know where we were. Now, I know we're 10 miles from the house, which is 10 miles from the paved road. We're a long ways away from safety. Sun was going down, and my machine got stuck in about a 4-foot drift. Now, I don't know how many of you all have tried to get a snowmobile out of a 4-foot drift. It ain't fun. And the problem was, not only was I stuck, I didn't know where the trail was. Then the sun was going down and the wind was picking up. Now that's a very unsettling feeling. So even if I got myself unstuck, I could risk getting stuck at another spot just as bad or worse. And I would have spent all that energy to get myself unstuck and then got myself into a worse problem. Does that sound like being a caregiver? I want to make sure I'm in the right crowd here. Finally, and I mean, my heart was turning. I'm thinking, okay, this is not cool. And I'm thinking, okay, what are we going to do here? And then we dug around and we kind of came up with a systematic approach. We found the marker. We got the machine unstuck. We got it to the place of safety. Now, I wasn't thinking about the house. I wasn't even thinking 5 miles down the road. I was just thinking, where's the marker? That's all I want to get to is where's the marker, so I know where the trail is, I can get my bearings, and I can get settled in on this. That's what I do. I help myself and my fellow caregivers find the marker. We're not going to solve this thing. We're not going to think 5 miles down the road. We're just going to deal with the next marker right here, right now, and get us to a place of safety so we can make good decisions. How many of you think you make good decisions when you're stressed out and freaked out? How many of you have ever made a good decision stressed out and freaked out? It just doesn't happen that way. So, given that, let's jump into this thing. We're going to look for the marker. Now, when you're driving down the road, and you ever been in a fog? Anybody ever driven in a fog? What's the first thing you do? Slow down. Slow down. How many of you don't slow down when you get into a fog? You got 2 problems. You're a caregiver and you don't slow down in a fog. All right, so you slow down in the fog. Well, caregivers have their own fog, and I'm going to talk about that this morning. The fog of caregivers. Fog of caregivers. Fear, obligation, and guilt. The fog of caregivers, which leads to heartache, anger, and turmoil. Spell that out, and it says fog hat, because I like 70s music. And who knows the #1 single of Foghat? No. Slow Ride, not Free Ride. You're thinking Free Bird. Bless your heart. So, fog hat, fear, obligation, and guilt leads to heartache, anger, and turmoil. So, slow ride, that's fog. See, how hard is that to remember that now? I'm telling you, this is what I do. I make it so easy. I have to because I wrote it for me. Remember, I wrote the book for myself. It's so easy you could read it in the bathroom. I know because I wrote it there. So, fog hat, slow ride. Let's slow down. Let's just slow down. Because if we don't, we're going to run the risk of hurting not only ourselves, but people that we love. We've got to slow down. Now, you heard I'm a black belt in Hapkido. I've learned a few things in martial arts that translate over to caregiving. Now, I'm a very dangerous person within about 5 square feet. Then I got 52-year-old knees and I'm not chasing you. You're on your own. You're on your own. When I got my black belt, they changed my name and now it's Show Nuff. They don't get any better. So just go ahead and give me a mercy laugh for those of you, okay? I'm doing the best I can with it. Do I have to go back to the Bill Clinton? Maybe I could do Donald Trump. Believe me when I tell you. It's so fabulous. These jokes are the best jokes. Believe me, I know. They're fabulous jokes. So here's a couple things we're going to learn that I learned from martial arts that apply to caregivers. Very simple things. Breathe. Breathe. How many of you take yoga? How important is breathing in yoga? We take for granted that we know how to breathe. But do we? Do we really? When we get into high stress situations, do we know how to breathe? So all you that feel stressed and tired and weary and frustrated and angry and all these kinds of things this morning, let's talk about breathing right now. Right now. 4 seconds in, 8 seconds out. Will you do that with me? Now watch what happens. When I say go, we're just going to inhale 4 seconds. And we're going to exhale slowly, controlled for 8 seconds. 4 seconds in, 8 seconds out. Ready? Inhale. Exhale. Feel it? You just had a moment of stress reduction right there. How much did it cost you? Think you could remember that? Do it again. One more time. 4 seconds in, 8 seconds out. Inhale. Now we're calming our heart rate down. Stress will tear us apart. They say that the average person who takes care of somebody with full-blown Alzheimer's takes 5 to 10 years off of their life with the stress of it. Imagine what it does for HD. Okay? Your body can't handle that kind of stress. So let's breathe. Second thing, W. Wait. Wait. My martial arts instructor told me, he said, don't go looking for trouble. It'll find you. You wait. I don't have to go and aggressively go after somebody. I can sit there and plant my feet and let them come to me. Same thing with being a caregiver. I don't have to go looking for trouble. It's going to find me. Are any of you caregivers struggling to find things to worry about? Are you struggling to find things to do? Are you struggling to go after something? It'll come to you. Wait for it. Get yourself settled, get yourself planted, and wait for it. B, W, R, relax. My instructor tells me all the time, just relax, but don't try to white knuckle it. Who here tries to white knuckle stuff? Oh, come on, raise your hands. You're lying, the rest of you, because that's what we do. We sit there, just tense ourselves up and try to force things. Anybody ever try to force something? Liars. We're just going to stop right now and just lift y'all up in prayer, because that's what we do. We somehow think it's all up to us, but it's not. We need to relax, and we need to go back and settle ourselves down. B, W, R. And the last one is prioritize. Instructor was telling me just a couple weeks ago, he said, fight what's closest. Now, what does that mean to a caregiver? In martial arts, it means I'm going to fight the guy that's right here, not the guy that's 100 yards away. As a caregiver, there are things coming down the road that are not in our scope just yet. Let's don't fight that right now. Let's just fight what we got today, what's right here at us. B, W, R, P. I tried to come up with something that meant wait that had a U in it so I could call it burp, but I couldn't. So you're going to have to settle for W. We could call it burp, I guess. I was trying to think of that, how that would work. But how much money have we spent? Nothing. It costs nothing to do this. We can do this right now. We can start settling ourselves down. Why? Because healthy caregivers make better caregivers. Again, what happens to my wife if I stroke out? Her life's not going to improve. It's not going to get easier. Somebody's going to have to step in and do what I do. Now, how many people do you think it would take to replace what I do for her that I've learned over 30 years? How many people would it take to replace you as a caregiver? You're not being selfish when you do this. You're being practical. You're being responsible. All right, so we've learned how to breathe. Let's get into fear, obligation, and guilt. Fear. Fear will eat you up. How many of you all live in the wreckage of your future? Now think about what that said. That's a real clever way of saying y'all worrying about tomorrow. How much good does that do you? How effective are you at solving problems that haven't happened yet? Anybody? We will indulge ourselves in the pain of things that hadn't even happened yet. We got enough pain right now today. Or am I in the wrong crowd? Do I need to go to the next room? All right, stay with me. It's all right to give a big amen or whatever. You know, my dad is a preacher. I mean, do I hear a witness? Somebody. So, we live in this fear that just rips us apart. And it causes a breakdown in our abilities to even make good decisions. Fearful people are angry people. Angry people are fearful people. Does that resonate with anybody here? We get angry because we're afraid. We get afraid because we're angry. And it just feeds on it. And it just tears us apart physically, emotionally, and every which way. How's that working for you? Anybody want to keep doing that? All right. Obligation. Here's how you tell if you got a problem with obligation. I gotta. I need to. I could have. I would have. I should have. We use those phrases. And we just constantly put this burden on ourselves that somehow it's all up to us. And we feel obligated to do it. Am I in the right place? Does anybody feel obligated? Obligation is a petri dish for resentment. It is only about that far away from turning into full-blown resentment. And I know that nobody in this room feels any measure of resentment, right? And resentment will eat you up. My goal for myself and my fellow caregivers is that one day when we do stand at a grave, and we will, that's the goal, is for us to stand at the grave. Not because we're selfish, not because we're mean people, not because of anything else other than the fact that my wife's life will get harder if I go before her. Yeah. And I have a responsibility to take good care of the one person who's standing between her and even further disaster. Now, I can't do everything, and I can't guarantee it, but I can certainly live more responsibly. But I don't want to be standing at that grave with clenched fist, mad at her, resentful at friends and family who didn't help the way I felt like they should have. Oh, I've gone to meddling now. At myself or at God. I don't want to be that way. I don't want to be filled with resentment. I don't live like that 100% of the time, but I know where the marker is. I know where the marker is. You ever try to push a wheelchair with clenched fist? Try it. See how far it gets. Don't do it with somebody you love in the wheelchair. I don't want any letters or any lawsuits. Believe me, I've got enough problems. But, yes, I do. We don't need to live with that kind of resentment. See, I didn't come here to tell you how to change an adult diaper. I didn't come here to tell you how to deal with doctors, which I could, by the way. I didn't come here to tell you how to deal with insurance companies. I've never lost an appeal. That's another time. Because those things, once you got it, you got it. The problem for caregivers is we keep getting off the trail and we don't know where the marker is. And we don't know how to get back to safety so that we can breathe, so we can relax, so we can not pull our hair out, so we can not end up looking like this. Bless you, sister. Bless her heart. Look at, I tell you what a crowd. I tell you, I get no respect. It ain't easy being me, I tell you. I went to the Surgeon General. He offered me a cigarette. All right, so guilt. Guilt. Now, I know nobody in this room is dealing with guilt. There is no problem so bad that guilt can't make it worse. And I'm not talking about guilt over great sins that get great press, okay? And that's not what I'm talking about. I'm just talking about the guilt, the fact that they have this disease and it came through the family. I watched my brother and his wife with their 27-year-old daughter with CP. struggle with this. Two guys in the same family with almost 60 years of caregiving experience between the two of us. And I've watched them work through all that kind of stuff, second guessing themselves as parents. Guilt will eat us up. I can take a shower standing up. My wife can't. I can get in the car and just go when I want to, and it's a lot more work for her. Sometimes I feel guilty if I just want to watch a television show without interruption. I know I'm the only one in here. Sometimes I just want to be left alone and just be still for a few moments. And I feel guilty for taking that time. Why? Because of that, go back to that obligation. I'm lost in the fog. I don't know which way is up sometimes. I don't need to feel guilty for those things. I need to be still. If you don't take time for stillness, you're going to have to make time for illness. Yeah. Write that down. That's really smart. Y'all record. I'm going to buy my own tape on this one. This is part of the journey we have as caregivers, and we get lost in this fog of fear and obligation and guilt. How do you get through a fog? Well, you slow down, and then what? You've got to calibrate. How do airline pilots do it? They use a GPS. They calibrate their position with something other than their own eyes. There was a tragic event several years ago. Some of you remember it, when JFK Jr. went down off the coast of Martha's Vineyard. He was going by line of sight in his plane, but he wasn't instrument rated, and he got disoriented and flew right into the ocean and took his wife and his sister-in-law. He took people that he loved down with him because he was disoriented. How many of you all feel disoriented? Nobody? Liars. Bless your hearts. We get confused, we get disoriented, we don't know which way is up sometimes. How did we find that way? There's a wonderful scripture in Proverbs that says, lean not on your own understanding. You know why it's there? Because we lean on our own understanding and say, don't do that. I've leaned on my own understanding. It doesn't work. I've seen my understanding. I'm not impressed. My best thinking got me into some real bad messes. And my mind is a dangerous place to go into unaccompanied. I don't want to do it. I've been there. It's scary in there. Y'all know that by now, don't you? So how do we orient ourselves as caregivers? And by the way, when the plane is on autopilot, did you all know that it's not on course 90% of the time? It's not. It's being buffeted around by the wind and the air, and the autopilot is constantly making adjustments to get it back on course. That's the way we are as caregivers. We're not going to be on course most of the time, but we can make constant adjustments if we know where the marker is. Tell me I'm in the right crowd here. Do you know where the marker is? Where is safety? Let's get to safety. GPS. Guilt. Grace. Guilt. Grace. Grace is the most beautiful word in the English language. I married a woman named Grace. I love that word, Grace. I love saying her name. We don't give ourselves any grace. I wouldn't hang around somebody who treats me the way I treat myself. I wouldn't do it. And I bet you wouldn't either. But we beat ourselves without mercy, thinking somehow because of guilt or whatever, we've got to push ourselves to the breaking point. Anybody feel that way this morning? Give yourself some grace. Look at your neighbor. Touch your neighbor. Just say, give yourself some grace. Give yourself some grace. Look, it's not a license to screw it up. It's not a license to do just a pitiful job. We're not going to do that. We're caregivers. We show up. It's like the old, in the army or so, when they would say, they're all standing in line and saying, I need a volunteer, and everybody would step back, and the poor guy that was left there, you didn't step back. Nope. You didn't yesterday, you didn't today, and you're not going to tomorrow. That's who you are as a caregiver. Somebody asked me, said, what's the difference between a caregiver and a family caregiver? Because they were talking about nurses and so forth, and I said, a paycheck. That's the difference. And you didn't step back. In the face of overwhelming odds, you're not necessarily a scientist. Some of you are. You didn't necessarily know about all these things, but you've done it. And you keep doing it. And you keep doing it over and over and over. You're spending your blood, your sweat, and your treasure. You're giving everything you got. And then you end up beating yourself up because you didn't do it as well as you think you should have or somebody else thought you should have. And I say, give yourself some grace. You're doing the best you know to do with what you have. Today, you're going to be more equipped than you were yesterday. And tomorrow, you're going to learn even more. Give yourself some grace. That's a marker. Fear, purpose. Fear, purpose. We fear what we don't know. When we get angry, when we see things happening that we don't understand. I was over in Ghana one time and we put a leg on a guy named Kwame. And he had lost his left leg. And we're building this leg for him, and the whole time he's just mad. I mean, just mad. Mad at God, mad at life. His leg was gone, and he's just mad. And we still kept building his leg. And we have a limb recycling program, and that's prosthetic limb, not tree removal. And we collect used limbs from all over the country. They go to a local prison in Tennessee where inmates volunteer to disassemble them for us so we can use the pylons, the knees, the screws, the adapters, the feet. I call it Operation Footloose. And I remember when we started this program at the prison, I told the warden, I said, now look, this is the most leg these guys have felt in a while, and I don't want to start it probably. And bless their hearts. But so we're over there, and then sometimes we'll collect limbs from family members who had a loved one that passed away. Sometimes it's from kids that outgrew them, or other people that just changed legs and so forth. And so they come from all over the places. But we put a foot on Kwame. It was a high-performance foot. And I recognized this foot. When I sat down with him after he had his leg, and I looked at him, and I looked at that foot, and I looked over at my wife, and she happened to be with us on that trip. This is some years ago. She can't travel very much anymore. She's really struggling with a lot of things. But I looked down at that foot, and I looked over at her, looked down the foot, looked over at her, and I said, Kwame, I know you're mad. I know you're mad at God, you're mad at life, you're mad at all these things because you lost your leg, but I want you to look over there. She has trusted God with the loss of both of her legs, and because of that, you're getting a new one. What's more, that's her foot. It was one of hers. She dug it out of the closet, put it in her suitcase, and took it over there, and we put that foot on Kwame. And I said, every step you're taking, you're walking on her faith. Literally. And he got it. And I saw purpose. I saw purpose. And there have been many times over these 30 years when I've stood in more hospital corridors looking at them, taking my wife in a gurney, wondering if she's going to come back. I've sat in hospital room after hospital room after hospital room. Spent the night in recliners that felt like somebody was just kicking me in the back all night long. I know I'm in the right crowd with this. Woken up in the middle of the night to seizures. Was there for her when she coded. And I didn't see any purpose. I just saw pain and frustration, and it's still going on. I'm dealing with some medical things this week. I'll go back tonight and deal with that. We got more stuff going on. It's not going to end anytime soon. But when I see you, and when I see the opportunity that I have to come up here and share with you things that I've learned, that I've aggregated over a lifetime of this, to say, here's a lifeline, this is what sustains me, I think it's going to sustain you. Yep. I see purpose. This is what I do. And if you don't see purpose in what you're dealing with right now, then look at the purpose in me and trust that it will happen to you just like it's happening to me. I can appreciate things more than I ever could before. I play the piano better than I've ever played in my life. I write better. I speak better. I appreciate beauty. I was looking, who's the lady that did the paintings out here? Where is she? Is she here? There was one out here that just struck me, and I just about started weeping looking at it. I've never wept at art before. I don't know what art is. You know, I'm doing good with the Far Side. But I saw such beauty, such poignant depth in her work. I didn't have that before. I love the way I play the piano now. I told Louise if she had a piano up here, I'd play for you. I put a little tip jar up here, you know. If Mama needs a new pair of legs, baby. Oh, that's funny. I don't care who you are. I love the way I think about life now, but I hate how I got here. And if you are in that place where you don't see purpose, when you feel like it's just, this is all for naught, this is just stupid, I'm asking you for a leap of faith to realize that if somebody like me can see that, then you can too. I'm an unlikely emissary of hope, but I am. And this is my conviction. I'm about out of time out here. Last one. Stewardship. The S, GPS, grace, purpose, stewardship. Stewardship versus obligation. Obligation is I gotta. Stewardship is I don't own this. I'm just going to be the best steward of it that I can. And clearly, they don't know what stewardship means down in Washington. We're $20 trillion in debt, and believe me when I tell you that's a lot of money. That we don't know what stewardship is. But stewardship means it's not mine. I didn't do this to my wife. And I can't undo it. I can't undo it. All I can do is the best that I can. And ask for the strength to make amends when I screw it up, not if, but when. I've had ample time to make every kind of mistake you can make. I'm the crash test dummy of caregivers, y'all. I've done, look, if it can be failed at, I failed at it. But I didn't do this to her. I don't own this, and neither do you, because you can't undo it. So we do the best that we can, and we realize this is not mine to fix. Take off the cape, take off the superhero costume, and realize that you're a human being. Give yourself some grace. See purpose in your own life. Realize that you don't own this. You did not do it, and you can't undo it. It is a disease, and they call it that for a reason. That's where the marker is. You're going to have to remind yourself on that on a regular basis. And I'm going to leave you with this last thing. I call it the Delta Doctrine. Then I'll take a couple quick questions, and we got to get out of here. The Delta Doctrine, it's very easy. I was flying out of Atlanta one day on Delta. Duh, everything leaves through Atlanta. That's what it stands for. And the flight attendant comes on and says, what we've all heard, put your mask on first. We've all heard that. We've all heard that about caregivers. Put your mask on first. But what does that even mean? And by the way, they don't tell you the other things. They don't tell you how to open up the peanuts, which are surprisingly difficult. They don't tell you how to use that atomic suction device known as the toilet. They think we're going to figure that out. But they have to remind us every time to put our mask on first. Why? Because we recklessly hurl ourselves at trying to help somebody while holding our breath. Remember I said we got to breathe. We cannot help someone if we pass out. We've got to do this first. But what does it look like to put your own mask on first? I'll give you 3 things. Again, simple things because it's me. Go back to WWW again. Everybody say WWW with me. WWW. In Tennessee, we say WWW. But WWW. Anybody can remember this? Wait. Just wait. The first W is wait. I say it twice because we need to wait. See, we don't have a flashpoint when we're dealing with the medical triage. That's a medical problem. The relationship issue, flashpoints, that all happens in just all the normal workings on. We get into flashpoints with other people, we get in flashpoints with our loved ones, and we get in flashpoints with ourselves. So wait, just wait. Just bite your tongue and learn to like the taste of blood. Just wait. Just wait. You don't have to go to every fight you get a ticket to. You can sit a few of them out. Don't get into a tug of war with people. With your loved one that you're taking care of, with the doctor, the nurse, don't get into tug of war. There's only 2 possible outcomes in a tug of war. What are they? You win, you end up on your butt. You lose, you end up on your face. Don't pick up the rope. Sit it out. Let it go. Wait. Just wait. You don't have to prove somebody wrong in order for you to be right. Water. Drink to think. Hydrate. You cannot drink enough water unless you're in Cuba at Guantanamo Bay, and that's a whole different story. Oh, that's funny. I just thought of that. It just came out. It was funny. You should give me mercy laughs. Drink to think. Just drink. Drink some water. Settle yourself down. And it fills up your mouth with something besides words. And the last one is walk. Just take a walk. Just 5 minutes, 10 minutes, bleed off that stress. Weight, water, walk. How much have we spent so far? But these are things to help us find the markers, to calm us down when the craziness hits. And it will hit. And it will be unfair. And it will hit multiple times a day. And that's how we do this as a caregiver. That's how we get to the marker. That's how we get to safety so that we can make good decisions, whether it's our financial decisions, relationship decisions, emotional decisions, professional decisions. Maybe you're getting into conflict with people at work because you're having to adjust schedules so much. It settles your own heart down so that you can respond without reacting. My time is about up. I got time for just a few questions. I just want you to know how much I appreciate that. I don't want to go over. So are there any questions? I'll take any questions. No math. Fog, what was the A and T in fog hat? Fear, obligation, and guilt leads to heartache, anger, and turmoil. That's what's going to happen when you get in that fog and you're not slowing down and you don't do these things. Just expect heartache, anger, and turmoil. It's going to happen. How many of you want more heartache and anger and turmoil in your life? Let's reduce it. We can't eliminate it. We can't eliminate it, but we can reduce it. The whole point is to move towards a healthier lifestyle. Any other questions? Great question. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Where can we donate prosthetics to?
Go online to standingwithhope.com/recycle. Standingwithhope.com. We'll take that. It's a great day to get a leg up on someone. Oh, don't be a heel. Step off. Don't make me call a tow truck. I got thousands of them. All right. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for many of your excellent points, but could you also add a few ideas to help caregivers who their loved one, particularly in the later stages of HD, is usually unable to express any sort of appreciation for what the caregiver is doing for them, or sometimes even anger and resentment? Because I think that's one unique part of our struggle, that we deal with all that you have so well described, but we also deal with the fact that it's not always known to us that it's appreciated.
You're not doing it for their appreciation. You're doing it because you love them, regardless of how they can respond. They're never going to, even in the best of, anybody here married? Even in the best of circumstances in a marriage, you're going to do something for your wife or your husband, and they're not going to appreciate it. And they don't even have HD at that point. That's just life. Stop looking for them for affirmation and recognize that you're doing it out of your own sense of who you are as a person. And you can be content with that. This group will give you affirmation. Amen. This is your family. You heard what Louise said. This is family. They may not be able to respond. They may be having a bad day. They may not care. They may be so impaired that they can't. If you look to someone else for your own affirmation, when you're doing what you know the best you can do, you're always going to be disappointed. So let's stop being disappointed. Let's detach from that and not put that pressure on them to make us feel better about it. See, the goal is for us to not feel better. We're never going to feel better about this. Yeah. It sucks. My wife doesn't have legs. She's in pain all the time. HD sucks. Louise said it perfect. It's a crappy disease. We're never going to feel better about this, but we can be better. We can be better in this thing, and that's the goal, that we can be stronger, healthier, and more joyful people. And today is a great day to start being a healthy caregiver. But that's a great question, but that's how you do it. You stop putting that onus on them to somehow show that appreciation, and you do it because of your love in your own heart. And sometimes you may be weeping as you're doing it. But I would rather change addressing weeping than I would gnashing my teeth. And I've done both, and it works better for me if my heart is in a tender place. And it's hard to do that, but that's why this group is so good. That's why you guys, isolation is one of the number one issues that caregivers face, and we're pushing back against it by being here today. I think I'm out of time. Thank you all very, very much. I appreciate you very much. Oh, wait. I got one last quick object lesson in 30. I can do this quick. I need 3 volunteers, real quick. Come on. Don't just sit there with your bare face hanging out. Come on up here. All right, I got 3. All right. This is fear. That's fear. Hold that out. Hold it out, straight out. One hand. That's obligation. That's guilt. Hold it out. Y'all just hold that as long as you think you could hold fear, obligation, and guilt. And tell me when your arms get tired. Because this is what we're holding on to as caregivers. This is what we do. We recklessly put ourselves in a position where we cannot sustain this. How many of you all can do this? How many of you all can continue doing this? Anybody stand on her head for 3 months? I remember when my wife had a terrible back infection, the doctor came in there, keep holding it out. The doctor came in and he said, she's going to have to be in here for 3 months. We're going to have to open her up every 3rd day. We're going to have to irrigate this thing out. She can't raise up more than 15 degrees during the whole time. And I had kids at home and the whole thing. And I said, I can't do this. I can't do this for 3 months. And he looked at me and said, you're not going to do it for 3 months. You're going to do it for 24 hours. Nobody can do this for a lifetime, but anybody can do it for 24 hours. And that's how we're going to, how's the arm feel? How's the arm feel? How's the arm feel? All right, keep it going. And that's how we do it. This is how we do it. We live for today, bright hope for tomorrow, understanding that, you know what? It's not going to always have the fairy tale outcome that we want it to have. But what does? Are you going to wait for your life to get all happy before you decide that you're going to be content and happy? We're as miserable as happy as we want to be. I live with grim enough circumstances that even this group can respect it. And I'm not miserable. I choose not to be. And I see beauty, and I see joy, and I see excitement around me, even while I'm dealing with very, very harsh realities. And if you can't see that for yourself right now, then you trust that because I can see it, that same ability is available for you today. And today is a great day to start being a healthy caregiver. You can do this. If I can do it, you can do it. How's the arm feel? How's the arm feel? All right. These books weigh little, if nothing. You can have that, by the way. That's done. And yet, in less than 90 seconds, their arms are already tired. How tired are you from holding on to fear, obligation, and guilt? Let's let it go today. Thank you very much. Thank you all.